Hello and welcome to this lecture number 3, where we are going to learn the last framework for sustainability reporting. And as in every lecture, we will start with a few concepts that are important and maybe you know a little bit about them before, but it's important to clarify before we start. And some of them are very relevant for this framework on itself, the third one. So CSR is the first concept that we are going to discuss, corporate social responsibility. And it's important to clarify, first of all, that this is an approach in management. It's maybe the first initiative to make sustainability relevant in business. So it basically says that management should not only focus on money and economic aspects, it should also focus on sustainability aspects, in this case, more related to society. Of course, society somehow involves the environment as well, but I think CSR is focusing on this concept of stakeholders from society that are relevant for the company. I think that I can see that CSR is maybe the root of the sustainability reporting, is maybe the first initiative talking about doing management for something beyond just money. It's maybe the first um, thing that try to put sustainability at the core of the business model. And maybe sustainability reporting is the last step of this process. If you want to see it like that, CSR is maybe the first step on putting sustainability inside of the business, and sustainability reporting is maybe one of the last steps when you finally manage to put it in together in some way and you can show it to the world. So just keep in mind that CSR, corporate social responsibility, is an approach in management, is a way of doing management. ESG, the environmental and social governance framework, it is the name says, it is a framework that tries to quantify, tries to make very objective what are the different issues related to sustainability in the business. Uh, CSR is a bit flexible on how you can talk about this responsibility. I think, like as it says in here in the slide, it's a little bit about the narrative and telling what's going on. But ESG, Environment, Social, and Governance Framework, is much more clearer. It tries to make things more quantifiable. It focuses on metrics, for example, for the environment emissions, for the social part, the workforce. It tries to make things more clear. It tries to also suggest concrete targets and strategies to improve if there is a problem. So ESG is a framework that is very objective. CSR is an approach in management that it's quite broad. There is no like concrete metrics in CSR. And finally, maybe you remember that ESG, there is something called the ESG score, where depending on how well you can quantify, how well you can objectify issues, opportunities related to sustainability, and how you will tackle them, how you will control them, how you will try to minimize the risk in a very objective and clear way, this ESG score will try to go high as long as you do well in these tasks of showing quantitatively and carefully and very concrete how what are you doing. So and maybe you have learned this in other courses that some companies have high ESG scores because they are very good at quantifying and showing things, but not all the time it translates into a very sustainable firm. Like it's more about being able to capture the sustainability issues in some way and also plan and show certain things in a very objective way, then you get a high ESG score. But it's only about that. As you can see here, it's only about the metrics. It's only about showing the information that you are able to make it objective and quantifiable. But it's not really a proxy for how sustainable you are in a way. We will discuss that a little bit more later. And finally, the last concept is voluntary reporting. So far, some companies are not forced to do sustainability reporting. We say that the big firms that use IFRS to report for financial accounting information have to use IFRS to report on sustainability. They have to do it. So usually big public firms in Europe and some other countries, or with the CSRD, large firms will be forced to report in 2026, and then other firms will join later. So there is some kind of regulation in there that you are forced to report, but the voluntary reporting is when you don't have to do it or when you do more than that. So it's a little bit different. I think it's a little bit obvious. But I am mentioning this voluntary reporting because the GRI, the one that we are going to learn today, this framework for reporting is voluntary, 100% voluntary. There is no um, law that forces you to do it. However, it's the most common framework to report on sustainability. It's also a little bit connected to ESG because the companies that get higher ESG is because they follow GRI in a better way. They get assessed on how well they report using these GRI things that they have to report. So it's also kind of a balance between it's not mandatory, but if you want to do well on ESG, you have to report in some way, and maybe the best approach to report voluntarily, if you don't have to do it by law, is the GRI. That's why it's so popular. It's maybe the most important one. And also, finally, GRI is also global, like the other frameworks, where, for example, CSRD is European, IFRS is not, it doesn't apply in the US, but GRI applies everywhere, applies in a way that is not mandatory to use it. So here is the introduction to GRI. We will go into in depth in some of the standards, but just a quick kind of overview. GRI means Global Reporting Initiative. It has been around for many years. It started in the 2000s, trying to set some standards because the goal was to make sustainability information comparable to disclose things in a certain way and certain things so that you could compare between some companies. Um, the structure, we have learned the structure of the other frameworks. The IFRS is super simple because they only have two standards. The CSRD, they have their own standards, but they are very logical. They have the E1 and then the E1 to 5 and then S1 to 4. And so you have all this very clear structure. It's the same for GRI, but in GRI, there are many, many standards. We have some that are universal standards and they apply for everyone. We will discuss them in detail. Then we have sector standards for some sectors that are more impactful. We will discuss that. And then we have topic standards that are divided into four. The universal ones, we'll talk about them in a second. Then the economic, environment, and social ones. So as you can see, in GRI, we have much more division, which we have much more standards. We will talk about that. So I think for now, it was a good introduction. I think now we can go in the next video and discuss the standards one by one in a way.